All right, good evening, everybody, and welcome back to the final TDevConf speaker interview of the day. My guest this evening is Mr. Chad Green. I kind of feel like I need to say, and now my guest, Chad Green. I kind of feel like I got to introduce you properly, but we'll talk to Chad more in just a minute. But first of all, I want to go ahead and give a shout out to our friend Chris Gardner down in Huntsville. At least he's down in Huntsville for me because I'm a little bit north of him. However, Chris runs TDevConf, and normally that is an in-person conference. It was supposed to be actually tomorrow and Saturday, I believe. However, he's taking it virtual. He's going to be broadcasting live starting at about 8:30 or 9 o'clock Central Time tomorrow morning on Twitch. The channel name is TDevConf. You can also go to devspaceconf.com or on Twitter at TDevConf for more details. Mr. Green, how are you this evening?
I'm doing awesome.
Fantastic. So why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself with a 60 to 90 second elevator pitch?
Yeah, so I'm Chad Green. I kind of do a couple things around everything. I have Copalooza, which is that wrapped up a couple weeks ago. Wrapped up for all the attendees. It's still going on for me. Trying to get all the videos edited and the site put out there. But along with that, I run several user groups here in Louisville. And then Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, I stream at Taylor & Code starting at 8 p.m. Central. I'm sorry. Yeah, I've been talking to you guys too many times. 8 p.m. Eastern.
Our Central Time zoners are causing problems again. So I know that you've got a lot of experience behind you, and I'm going to try not to give away any spoilers, but why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about some of your early times in computing? What was your first computer?
So actually, the first computer I had was an HP 120. Which was a very, back in the 70s. Mm-hmm. So it was actually a hand-me-down from my father. But I just tinkered with that a little bit. The first computer that was actually mine was an Atari 400.
Oh, wow, Atari.
Which definitely I'm showing my age. And that's where I really, I really started to learn how to program and with Atari Basic. Mm-hmm. And there's a reason why I did Basic for a very long time. Because that's what I started with. And that's what my father did. My father was a software developer also. And
right.
He did Basic till the day he retired.
No, you talk about showing your age. I can show my age as well. My first one was a TI 99 4A. Mm-hmm. And so it was interesting. Last night, I think it was last night, Chris Woodruff, Woody was telling me about his first one was one of the Apple IIe's. And the way that you distinguish between uppercase and lowercase was the uppercase letters were inverse. So instead of having green letters on a black background, the uppercase letters were black letters on a green background.
Oh, I don't remember. Yeah.
I never had one of those, but I do remember seeing.
I never had an Apple, but I used playing them. I mean, because like the schools would have them and such.
Oh yeah. No, that in fact that's all I used in school, and I don't know why. Well, I always, for some reason, I guess it's because I didn't have access to them in school. That's why I was always really excited when I got my first PC. I guess that's why I was really excited about it. Yeah. So I know that I know the answer to this question, but everybody else might not, because we talk all of the time. Like I said, when you interviewed me for Codepalooza, you said this is just going to be more like chat, just an extension of our normal chat. So I feel like this is probably going to be the same way, but I'll try to guide it in some ways. Your favorite code or text editor, not necessarily the one that you're using now, but which I believe that is your favorite. But what is your favorite one?
Oh, I mean, the only one I really use is Visual Studio, right? So it's first, I mean, it helps that I've had Visual Studio Enterprise for a long time, so I have all of the bells and whistles on it.
Right.
Although my complaint with Microsoft is some of those features should not be in the Enterprise. Some of those should be in the regular Pro edition. But
oh yeah,
I mean, prime example is the live unit testing.
Oh yeah.
I mean that is such an awesome feature. And that really should be, I actually think that should be a community, but I can see why they want to pay, why they want you to make pay for it.
Right.
But I really like it. I'm actually, I'm mentoring this quarter for Code Louisville, which is it's a nonprofit. Well, yeah, it is a nonprofit, but it's actually a government agency. It's a non-cost workshop for people who are learning how to program. And sure enough, they're using Visual Code or Visual Studio Code. So I'm actually getting more in depth with code, since that's what my people I'm mentoring are using.
Right. And so why don't you tell us about is it called Code Louisville?
Code Louisville, yeah.
Why don't you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so it's been around for 7 or 8 years. It's interesting. I have supported them the whole time they've been around, but this is the first time I've actually been able to mentor. Because for the first several years, the job just didn't allow it to happen. Actually, up until last year, the job didn't allow it to happen. And last year, I started traveling so much because of speaking. But the thing I really love about this program is we've got a lot of folks who came from like the wait staff or working in factories or working in warehouses, who, they're not making horrible money, right? But, it's obviously, they're making $13, $15, maybe $17 an hour, which isn't horrible. But, obviously you can make more in software development. And plus, you don't have to worry about, the worst thing you have to worry about safety-wise is carpal tunnel, right? So there's a whole lot different situation when it comes to that.
Yeah.
And, I think one of their, I've talked about this, and every time I bring this guy up, I don't say his name, but there's one guy in particular who, now about 5 years ago, he was waiting tables and working at bars. And now he's one of the senior devs here in Louisville. He's one of the more sought after developers. And he got his programming start at Code Louisville. So it's a really neat program that you do. And the cool part is it's not just one thing, right? So like I'm working with a C# program. They have a front end program. They have like a Node class. They have a SQL class. They do Python. So I guess it's Pythonic.
Well,
I think I'm the only one who's never heard that word until a couple weeks ago.
That's on my list of things to troll you about. I've got to work Pythonic into the conversation at least 3 times.
I've been working it every time I see you. And for those who don't know, it popped up on one of my screens the other week, and I had never heard of the term before, and I thought he was making it up. And of course, it's one of those things. Once you hear something, you can't unhear it, right? You keep on hearing it so many times after that, right?
Pythonic isn't that bad that you can't unhear it.
Well, no, but like your last interview with Brian, I heard Brian mention it, and I almost piped in. I won't troll Brian's interview.
Well, the thing is, when I heard it, I was like, okay, do I make the joke about trolling Chad about it now, or I wait until Chad's on screen to see his reaction? It's interesting because also, some of the chats that discussions on your stream kind of related to Code Louisville in the fact that and I believe I was talking to Chris about something similar last night, is that you don't even really have to have a college education at all to be, and you don't have a college degree if I recall. Yeah, and yet you're a director of software development for a company that has a software product.
Well, on top of who actually builds products for medical school, so it's
okay.
So a little bit of irony there. Although we have a lot of doctors on staff that
right,
not on the software development side of it, but yeah, I'm sure it's been one of my pet peeves for a long time. Obviously it was a pet peeve for years because I had a hard time finding work because for a long time, you could not move up. There were times I couldn't even move up because I didn't have a degree. And I look at it now, and every once in a while, you look at positions for like director of software development. And a lot of times they'll still say, oh, required, college degree. And I'm like, why? You're looking for someone who has a minimum 10 years experience. Mm-hmm. Now it's not to say that there wasn't any value in going to college, because I definitely believe in going to college if you can. For me, it just didn't make sense. Right. As a story I've told this a lot of times, but in my senior high school, I was mature enough to know I was not mature enough to go to college. Mm-hmm. And so I made a decision to listen to the Marine Corps and did that. And which I think that was the right decision for me. Mm-hmm. And then the funny part was I actually had a full ride scholarship coming out of the Marine Corps, but I got engaged, and that was more important. Right? We'll have our 25th anniversary in April, right? So it's
congratulations.
That has worked out, right?
Yeah, that's worked out very well. I would agree.
So, but as someone who hires people, we don't hire a whole lot where I'm at now, but I've been in positions where we hired a lot of folks, and it all, I would remember when I would turn in job descriptions to HR, and they were like, "Oh, you didn't put in a college requirement." I'm like, "I don't have a college requirement."
Right.
And they were like, "Well, we have to put one in." I'm like, "Well, yeah, just don't put it required." Well, do that. I'm like, "Well, I'll look at the resumes, right? I'll make decisions."
Yeah, I know it's kind of I'm not in the same boat, but I'm in a similar one because I do not have any education in computer science or anything. My education's in music. One thing that I have on the list here, but since you went ahead and mentioned it, being in the Marine Corps, that's definitely something that we appreciate your service to the country, because that's something that's very, very important, and I don't believe that our veterans get the respect that they deserve. You were actually in the stream on Monday. Yeah, Monday that I did with Jerome Hardaway with Vets Who Code, and I was talking to him. I don't know if you were in the stream yet, but however, I made the mistake of saying I'm going to be interviewing an ex-Marine on Thursday night, and he corrected me and said, "No, it's former Marine. Once a Marine, always a Marine." So,
yeah, no, I really like what Vets Who Code. I really like what they've done. I've been following that for a couple of years. So sure enough, I didn't notice it when it started, but as soon as I noticed, that interview going, I did jump on that stream.
No, I was going to say, and we have raised, I believe it's $400 for them through our sponsors. So so our sponsors are going to make a nice donation to Vets Who Code as well.
Okay, so that's where sponsorship is going, is towards that, or
they're making they're making sponsors. They're sponsoring both the conference in various ways, with either services or things that we can give away, and making contributions to Vets Who Code. Some of them have chosen to do that as well. So, yeah. Let's go ahead, and we haven't gotten to your talk yet. So we're halfway through. We haven't gotten to your talk yet. So the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Cosmos. Tell us about that. How about?
So this was an interesting why I wanted to do this talk, and I love this talk. It's a lot of fun. Because one, I do play off the whole title, right, with a hitchhiker, and I have a hitchhiker throughout my slides. And although it's funny, actually, I did present this at Ignite in DC. I did take out the hitchhiker for there. I figured Microsoft probably didn't want in their really nice corporate slides, but and this really boils down to the way how I even got started with Cosmos. So I'm a really big fan of Cosmos because I think it makes sense for a lot of uses. Not for all uses. Mm-hmm. And sure enough, so several years ago, I was actually challenged. I inherited a horrible, and this is not the company I'm with now, a previous company. I inherited a horrible database. It was just a complete mess. And we hired consultants who basically said the same thing I said, and then they gave a price tag to fix it. And the president of the company was like, "Oh, I was thinking like a third of that price, right?" And I'm like, "Well, no, this is actually a really good price." But long story short, he knew someone who was a dead architect, and this architect was, oh, you need to go NoSQL. SQL is dead, NoSQL, right? And of course, this is during the time when I was like, NoSQL was a toy. So I got challenged. I'm all right. Well, let me really look at this. And of course, I started looking at Cosmos. And sure enough, what I didn't realize till I actually started looking at it is, everyone thinks about the SQL API with there, but there's actually 6 different data models. So there's the SQL API, which is the document DB with the SQL in front to it. But there's graph databases. There's Mongo. There's now I'm drawing a blank because I don't have the slide in front of me. But there's all these different, Cassandra, all these really interesting data models out there, and that's really the goal of this talk, right? I assume that because you're coming here to learn about the different data models, I assume that you basically have no knowledge of Cosmos coming in, and so so I start off with a breakdown of what Cosmos is, what it's not. What can you use it for? Where is it really strong suits? And then I go, through the different data models. The one I don't touch very much is it also does support etcd. And to be honest, I don't do Kubernetes, so I don't really have much knowledge about etcd. And on top of it, my Hello World sample doesn't actually work with Kubernetes because that's not what its purpose is, right? But I still talk about it, right? Because it is still an important use case, which is why they added in there. So that's really the goal of that, right? Is to at the end understand all the options that Cosmos gives you.
Okay. So why would somebody use? Okay, so Cosmos DB supports MongoDB and it supports SQL and all this. Why would somebody use Cosmos DB over actual MongoDB or over an actual SQL database? Because would somebody actually use in an application, would part of the application use SQL and part of the application use MongoDB, or how would that work?
Oh, no. So actually, once you decide on a data model, you have to use that data model. You can't go back and forth for the most part. There is actually one workaround. I can actually, on a graph database, I can actually use the SQL API to query the graph database. Mm-hmm. That's not documented, but the way how they built the graph database, that's the way how it works. Mm-hmm. So for like Mongo or Cassandra, and those two in particular, the purpose actually was for people who already have a Mongo or Cassandra instance, and they need that scale that Cosmos gives you. Mm-hmm. Right? So Cosmos was built for Microsoft. They didn't build it as a personal product. They built it for themselves, mm-hmm. And it runs Office 365. Well, now it's Microsoft 365. It runs Xbox Live. It runs Azure itself. Mm-hmm. And Azure itself is dependent on Cosmos, and so it's got tremendous scale. It's in every one of the data centers. Data can move over in a heartbeat. You don't do anything, right? You click an option, say, "Hey, I want my data to be in these 5 data centers," and it's there, right? Mm-hmm. So that's the reason for like a Mongo or Cassandra, right? Is mm-hmm. you need that scale. Actually, the same thing with Table API, because Table API is one of the options in there. And sure enough, that is when the regular Table API that has been around in Azure since almost day one, mm-hmm. when you're growing out of it and you need more speed and more space, then you go up to Cosmos. All right. Okay. The graph is to implement a graph database, right? That's what it's in there for, and I talk a lot about graph database, not necessarily in this talk, but in general. I've become a humongous fan of graph databases. Mm-hmm. The SQL is not a really competitor towards like SQL Server, mm-hmm. Because it's actually it's a document database mm-hmm. that has a SQL front end. Is basically the way to look at it, and it's not 100% compliant with ANSI SQL. Mm-hmm. But it's mostly compliant, right? There's things it does not do, right? It is what it boils down to. It's not like it does anything different for the most part. A couple of syntaxes that are a little bit different, but even those, they're easy to figure out real quickly. So that really, that gives you, for those who grew up in relational database learning SQL, it gives you a nice way to manage a document database using a query language you already understand.
So I guess he's our friend. We'll for the purposes of being cordial on the stream, we'll call him our friend. However, Code with Sean, who's this guy? Yeah. Thanks for tuning in, Sean.
That's why I get Central Time confused all the time, because now I talk to Sean too much.
Still waiting for you to sign up for an interview, Sean. So I called you out officially online. But now you said it's a document-oriented database. Didn't Cosmos DB didn't that start out as Document DB, or Document DB was folded into?
They had Document DB or Azure Document DB,
right? And
they ended up rolling that into Cosmos. So it wasn't a straight translation. There were differences, but that's what they ended up doing. As a matter of fact, I think if I remember right, for a while they had both Cosmos and Document DB.
Oh, okay.
But I believe they dropped the Document DB. They're basically pushing you to go to Cosmos directly, which is the right. I mean, you're going to get more power of that. One of the things that this is kind of sort of related, but there is a plugin for Visual Studio Code that lets you access. It used to be called the Cosmos DB, and now it's just called Azure Databases. But however, what is interesting about that is that it's gives you a lot of interesting tools to work with the Mongo API and such. And I've actually used that for with MongoDB. I wrote a course for Pluralsight, in fact, that used that as the editor. So when they say it is MongoDB API compliant, they're living up to it. Oh yeah, and sure enough, I forgot the version numbers, and I have to refer to my slides when I talk about that. But I do talk about it that they are compliant up to a certain version number, which is like the main version number that's current, and it's 100% wire compliant, right? So it's and it was done on purpose for that, right? So that you can literally just lift and shift over to Cosmos. Okay. So that's about your professional life. You also have you're very, very involved in the community. You glossed over some of those during your introduction. Why don't you tell us a little bit more about what you do to help make the community awesome? Well, yeah. Also, and I did talk about this, but so I run Codepalooza. So that's an annual conference. We actually just had our 10th Codepalooza. Of course, this year we were virtual. Right. And sure enough, that was an undertaking going virtual. I mean, nothing like what Microsoft did with MP Summit, where they went virtual with 2 weeks notice. But still, I mean, we're teams in the process. we're a much smaller team, right? And but we really wanted to have an event this year. Back in April, I was seeing event after event cancel, and I understood why. And I was like, yeah, I want to have an event. So I have that, right, and that, that's a lot of time doing that. But then so within the city, I run. Well, actually, right now it's all virtual, so you don't have to be in the city. But I have Louisville.net, which sure enough, I'll give a quick plug. Next Thursday we'll have Mads Torgerson, who's the program manager for C#. So really looking forward to that. That's 7 p.m. Eastern time. So really looking forward to that. But I have that group. I have a little Azure group. Which is funny because actually a Microsoft salesperson started it up and then had no idea what to do with it, and so I kind of took over it. So we have that. .NET meets third Thursday of the month. Azure meets fourth Thursday of the month. I also have Louisville Tech Leaders, which is a whole idea of tech leaders helping each other, and tech leaders, whatever that means for you, right? I mean, maybe. Sure, you definitely call me a tech leader. I'm a director of software development, but, and my partner is a VP. But I mean, for us, sorry for the dog moaning behind. Oh, no problem. I was worried how long it was going to take, because I gave him the chance to leave the room, and he just laid down. So yeah, so tech lead, I mean, that could be just, you're a team, you're a tech lead even, right? I mean, so it's whatever it means. And it's more of a self-help group. So we have that. We're actually reworking the days we meet. But then we also have the IT happy hour, which is just a social group, and we've been doing that online because people still need to network with each other.
Absolutely.
And it's fun. I do have also the remote workers group. And actually, I put that hiatus because it doesn't make sense right now. Because actually, its purpose was to get remote workers out of the house. Right now, we can't get out of the house, right? So, so I'm hoping, you know, I mean, as soon as we can, you know, we really can start meeting again, we'll get that going again.
Oh yeah, you know, like I said, you know, next year if you've got Code Palooza in person, sign me up. And I was really happy that you went to the effort, and I think really did a great job with getting oh
with, surprised he went that long. With, 45 minutes without complaining.
Well, you know, you really did a great job of putting Code Palooza together, and I definitely appreciate that, because that so far has been the only. I mean, I've done quite a number of virtual user groups, but that's been the only conference I've spoken at this year. So no, and I've heard a lot of great things about it too. So, but that's really great. And here's one. I think I know what you're going to give the answer to this one as well. What do you do outside of work/tech, even though many times what we do outside of work is tech? But I think I know one thing.
What do I do outside of tech?
No, I know one thing you're going to say, that outside of tech.
Outside of tech.
I see the box on the table behind you.
Yeah. I do Legos, or Lego, I should say. Actually, it's funny. I was one of my work products, you know, text. I actually was reading through it. It had Legos spelled as Legos, and I actually wrote the editorial staff. I'm like, yeah, that's incorrect. Yeah, I do build Lego. The last thing I built was the International Space Station. So I had a lot of fun. Had a lot of fun building that one. Of course, actually, you can't see it on this camera, but I did build the big Star Destroyer. If I was to pan out the camera, you would see it because it's like looming over the room, right? Kind of like, you know, in with Rogue One, you know, it was looming over Jedi City, right? It's looming over my bookshelf in this house. But yeah, I've been having a lot of fun with those. That's my stress relief.
Darren Clark in the chat has said Minecraft takes less space.
So the reason why, and I just got back into Legos last year, and the primary reason is it gets me away from the computer. Mm-hmm. It's still a solitary thing, just because, you know, I mean, my kid's 23 years old, so I mean that's one reason why it's a solitary thing. You know, no one in my house other than me has any interest in doing it, but it does get me away from the computer, which, I mean, you do eventually have to get away from the computer, right? I mean, you know, okay. and this is the guy saying who, you know, I'm usually here at my desk for good 12 to 16 hours a day.
Yeah, it's definitely important to do those things. Have you done a Lego stream yet? You were saying you were going to do one of those.
No, I'm actually, that's part of the reason the box is there. I'm actually setting up this desk here to be a Lego stream desk. And I have just about everything set up. And now the camera's acting up, so I gotta figure that out one more time. And I was gonna try to do it last weekend, but I got busy with things around the house. Yeah. So I probably won't be this weekend either, but soon I am gonna start doing that.
I want to, I don't just steal all of your ideas, I promise, but I want to do the same thing. But what I'm going to do is I need to take the gym part of the office and move it over here, and move the office part of the office over there, because I want it to be up against, I want the back of the office to be a wall. Mm-hmm. I'm tired of having to keep all this, or fret about trying to keep all this clean back here. So I'm going to do, so I'm going to turn that around, and then also it'll be up against, and also will be across from the other part of the office, which will eventually be my studio. I'm going to take all the music stuff and put it over there because I'm going to get an iMac and put it back there. So yeah, but no, that's also something I'm definitely that's definitely on my list as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to get your closing thoughts, but because we're coming up against time a little bit here. But I do want to go ahead and give some shout outs. Shout out to our sponsors, like we were talking about our sponsors earlier, who have donated not only services and or prizes for the conference to give away, but also have made charity contributions to Vets Who Code. So go there. It's not a complete list yet. We're still working on the complete list because we got to get all the official logos and everything. But however, visit them and visit that early and often. If you want to get a ticket to see Chad or any of the other great speakers that we've been interviewing or will be interviewing, please go to bit.ly/TDevConf 2020-tickets. Tickets are free, by the way. TDevConf is 3 weeks from the day after tomorrow, Saturday, October 3rd. Make sure to miss it. Make sure to mark it on your calendar so you do not miss it. Let's put it that way. Follow us on Twitter at TDevConf. We will be tweeting about future interviews, the speakers, the sponsors, and any logistics that you need to know. Chad, what would you like to leave us with this evening?
Here's my last, closing thought is definitely, take part in, opportunities like TDevConf, right? Especially the free ones, right? And grant you, Codepalooza, we had to charge because we're a much bigger conference, right? This is, one of the benefits of the pandemic is that everything has gone virtual. And while I know, there's a big importance on, work-life balance, but this is an opportunity to really learn a lot about, how to improve your career, right? And that's why I say, take these opportunities as best as you can.
Okay, well, that sounds great. Once again, my guest this evening has been Chad Green. You'll never live that down. I think it's awesome, and I've been tempted to ask you who did that, so I can get them to do one for me. But Mr. Chad Green from Louisville, Kentucky. Thank you very much for everything you do. Once again, thank you for your service in the military, and we appreciate you helping to make TDevConf awesome.
Thank you.
So real quick, one final announcement. Tomorrow morning at 11 a.m. Central Time, we're going to be starting off the series again. Mr. Sam Bazu is going to join us and talk about what he'll be doing at TDevConf. Chad, thanks again. Well, I'll see you soon, my friend.
Yeah.
All right, thanks a lot.